Happy to have you guys back. I know we were taking a couple weeks off from many different things last week with shit hit the fan with everything with the Black Lives Matter and all that. So we're back, and we're back big time. And what's been going on with you guys?
Eating donuts,
dude.
popping champagne, and I mean,
getting left out of parties.
Really expensive whiskey
just
tasting.
Standard shit.
Life's been good, the beach.
Good. Well, what are we talking about today? I actually had somebody asked me the other day, how does one go about finding the right person to work with, and why is it important to actually hire a nutrition coach to help you navigate nutrition when sometimes, why did you just read a book or read something or do a course? What's the difference that kind of exists as far as that? So I figure that we can maybe kind of set some sort of criteria to kind of help listeners understand what are some of the not requirements, but some of the main characteristic of what makes a good nutrition coach, and why you should actually hire one, because people sometimes don't understand, and really what's the value of one, or even speaking of from the financial standpoint, because I feel like people are completely lost as to what does it really what's the value of that, I think I've gotten people telling me hey, I thought you were gonna charge me $30 a month just to kind of give me some advice, which again, I'm what is your problem? But at the same time, I'm maybe there's just this massive lack of awareness as far as what we do and how we do it. So I figure we'd opened up the room for discussion on this topic. So who wants to start?
I think I want to start with an overarching: information without implementation means no transformation. So what do we mean by that?
Repeat that.
Yeah. Nate and I got this from one of our new mentors, but information without implementation equals no transformation, right? So you can get all the information, you can buy all the books, right? All these $30 books, but if you don't implement it, you're not going to change. It's not going to happen regardless of what you want. So a nutrition coach is more than just a book. A nutrition coach is more than just a course. It's someone that's going to help you implement and personalize it to you, right? That's huge, because if a book is all we needed, we'd all have six packs and we'd all be billionaires, right? If that's all we needed, if information is all we needed, we'd all be there already. So there'd be no purpose for us, right? Regardless of what we do, and even performance-based, which what most of us handle. If that's all we need, we just buy a book. That's it. Write a book, talk to you guys later. We wouldn't podcast. We wouldn't need the coaches, which give us information and then help us implement what we've been missing out on this whole time, right? So I know, Andres, you've hired a nutrition coach before. Nate, you've hired a nutrition coach before. Dezi, have you hired a nutrition coach before?
I have not, no.
Me neither. I've never hired one. So maybe you guys can tell us, what was that journey for you guys and what made you guys decide to hire a nutrition coach? Because I work with dietitians, right? There are dietitians that come to me and they're like, I don't know if I should be coming to you because I'm a dietitian and I should know this. It's we preach the same things. However, that accountability and who you connect with, I think, is a huge factor if you're going to be successful or not. But I'm going to let you guys go from here.
Well, that was 2018. And I remember I had just done an entire year of on track, just whatever I thought was the right way to do keto. And obviously my own self-experimentation with intermittent fasting and stuff like that. And I realized that I got to a point where I was trying to grow my own business. So the reasoning why I actually decided to hire a coach was two. It was double purpose. One, I was about to turn 30, and I'm I need somebody to help me get to the best shape I could ever be by the time I turn 30. And number two, I was I want to establish my own business. I want to see what successful nutrition coaches are doing. So I was I'm going to hire somebody to understand how do they work and how do they do their things. So let alone obviously I'm coming from the standpoint of a dietitian that is always charged, you know, the $150 to $175 per consult, and like follow-ups like 120, which, you know, if there's dietitians listening in, I was like, well, yeah, that's the norm, right? It's like, yes. And then I obviously get on the phone with, you know, Tony, who was like the Tony Stefan, my previous nutrition coach. And I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is the goal and everything. He's like, okay, it's going to be 200. Back then when he was working as a nutrition coach, he's like, it's going to be $250 per month for email coaching, no calls. And I'm like, holy crap, like that's significant amount of money per month. And then how does it work? So I was a little puzzled, because I was like, this is like, and back then I'm thinking like, this is a lot of money. And I didn't really make the decision to hire him on the spot. I was like, let me think about it, you know, which is obviously the kind of things that we're like, you know, there's nothing to think about. So I got off the phone, and the next day I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do this. And I did. And it was the best decision I've ever made, because it not only allowed me to understand the importance of having somebody else's opinion on how you're doing certain things, but at the same time, it allowed me to understand the importance of accountability, of having somebody that you report to, so having somebody that is like holding you by the hand and like literally like guiding you through this process, and that you kind of have to respond to. Because our personalities as humans, like we don't want to do bad by anybody. We will always want to like do good by other people. So that, and I think that's why people pay the big bucks for paying for example, you guys and us, like working with new like business coaches. Like, yeah, they have a certain amount of knowledge, but they're not the holy grails of business. We're paying people a lot of money, specifically on the business realm, because of the fact that they can hold us accountable to do the things that are going to help us be successful in our businesses. So I think the same thing applies to nutrition coaching. And I think Nate, he hired the same person. So I think it also applies to him, right?
Yeah. My history with nutrition coaching, I mean, it stems back from post college, post undergrad, and had very, very horrible experience with nutrition coaches, or like Instagram physique coaches. And so, when I was working with Tony Stefan, and we had talked initially about, what the program entailed, it sounded exactly like my previous experiences. And so I remember, like, I had been following Tony for a while, and this is what I didn't do with the previous coaches, is I really like vetted him out. Like I wanted to understand his philosophies. I wanted to understand who he was as a human being, how he communicated, how he just communicated not only to people, but also his philosophies in nutrition. And they really aligned with what I believe in. And so, that was a big thing for me, is I needed the help. I needed the accountability, because like I knew how to calculate my own macros. I knew how to, I knew what I needed to do from a training standpoint, but with working a full-time job, with also trying to build a business on my own, it was hard to like have that accountability. It's very easy to put off, my own health and fitness goals in order to accomplish, what I was trying to do. So, like you were saying, having that accountability, and I never experienced that, because the first coach I hired, he gave me the same meal plan as a friend of mine that was doing the program with me. And that was it. I would see him maybe once a month. I'd go to his house in Orlando, and he would just do body comps, and that was it. There was no like, how's the program going? There was no like consistent accountability. So there was a big gap in what I believe was resulting in me having a really poor experience.
Was his first experience like a dietitian?
No, it was, he was a physique coach. So, he had a coach that told him what to do, and it worked for him. And then he, had people, then he started coaching people with what he was told was the right thing to do. And this was before I'd even thought about going into the nutrition realm. So I was just like the everyday person, I was brand new to it. So I had no idea what to even look for. But I think working with Tony Stefan, I mean, it really solidified the two things that make a great coaching program. And I think that's an individualized plan for the person, and accountability. And I think, it's some people I know, like, they don't really need the accountability, and they can do without, but I think there still is some level of accountability that everybody needs to help push the results forward.
And I actually retract my statement. I did have a nutrition coach when I was in high school. It was a friend of mine. He was he was just a bodybuilder. Like, he was a big guy and he actually body built. So he just gave me a meal plan that he wrote out. And I remember to this day, was counting out Triscuits and counting out goldfish. He never held me accountable, but every week he just give me like a plan of what to eat every day. And it was almost the same thing every week with very minor changes. And I would just see him at the gym. He's like, all right, here's your plan. See you later. So there was no accountability piece. Then in college, when my Fitness Pal came out, I remember using my Fitness Pal and I actually broke my foot because I was under fueling. That's a whole nother story, but not having that accountability piece, not having someone to really help me understand why should I be eating this X amount of calories, right? At that point in time, I was eating like 1,800 or 1,600 calories a day. Yes, I lost the weight, but then I also broke my foot because I was under fueling, but my Fitness Pal never gave me that feedback. It kept saying, great job, you hit under your calorie goal. So I had this preconceived notion that if I ate under 1,800 calories, it was a good day. And if I ate over 1,800 calories, it was a terrible day. Like, I fucked up. Like, that's it. My weight goals are out of the window. So the days that I did eat over it, I just wouldn't log so that I wouldn't get that negative feedback of this is a bad day. So I guess I've had an app coach, so it wasn't a real person, and then a real person back when I was younger, both of which aren't dietitians, both of which didn't give me accountability, and both of which didn't help me with my relationship with food. And that's what kind of got me into nutrition and to be a dietitian and nutrition coach. So to answer your question, like what to look for in a dietitian nutrition coach, it's like someone that's accountable, someone that's most likely a dietitian or they've learned from a dietitian, right? Not someone who does like a weekend course, because I have a client that he goes to a gym and the trainer's like, you should be doing the Whole30, you should be fasting every day. And it's just like,
And keto.
Yeah, and keto, right? And it's just like
keto.
why?
All at the same time.
Like
All at the same time.
And he asked
Amazing
the guy
results.
why. He's like, oh, well, because it worked for me. This guy's trainer is 6'2", and he eats 1,800 calories a day. But he can't explain to him because he did a weekend course in sports nutrition, which it always upsets me because the time all of us have spent in school to learn why certain things work for sports nutrition and performance, and someone that takes a weekend course because it worked for them and they're under fueling and they didn't understand why there's certain foods that should fall into these categories upsets me. So I wish, because I've worked with dietitians, I work with nutrition coaches, and I'm so happy because I'm able to educate them. And I'm like, here, take my PowerPoints, take my slides, teach people, because that's what we want at the end of the day.
Which leads to a very important part of this conversation, which is, and I do think that not all nutrition coaches are bad are bad at what they do, but there's not all dietitians are actually great nutrition coaches. I think like a lot of times like people, and I think honestly, like we sometimes get a bad rep, all of us as registered dietitians, mainly because there's like this like obviously the academia and then the way the dietitians are actually formed, they're not really like I guess like educated to become nutrition coaches. So can anybody talk about the differences that exist between a full-on registered dietitian and then a nutrition coach? Because I think a lot of times some things overlap, and people would say, well, like you need to find a registered dietitian because those are like the nutrition experts and those are the people that can definitely kind of get you the result. I disagree with that. I don't think that it needs to be a registered dietitian, but that would be something that would give a lot more, what's the word that I'm looking for?
Like a plus.
Yeah, it would be a plus or more credibility. That's the word I'm looking for. You know, so what are you guys' thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, so if I'm answering the question correctly, I think the first thing that comes to mind is in the field, what I'm seeing is that there's a huge separation between clinical dietetics and then a lot of what we do. I feel like the big difference here is that what we do is we are taking care of all the external factors, community, accountability, connection, and then the science. And then also with all that being said, making sure we're specifying it for them. Whereas with clinical dietetics, a little bit different. To me, the way that I see a lot of that is they're seeing people either in the clinic, they're seeing people in the hospital, they're seeing people when things have already gotten bad. In most cases, what we are trying to do is not only teaching longevity, but we're also trying to teach them prevention. So I do feel like there is a separation, if that's the question that you were asking, because that's the first thing that came to mind for me.
Yeah, and I remember in college, Nate, you remember, we had a professor who was meant to be a professor. He would have not thrived in this field or in clinical. Like Nate, he taught proteins. I think that's all I need to say. He's a great guy, great professor, but like he should
Drop his name.
Shout out if you're listening.
He's a great guy, great professor. I love what he did, but at the same point in time, it's like he could never do what we do. He couldn't even work in the clinical setting. Like there's just certain dietitians that need to stick to research. There's certain dietitians that need to stick to sports. There's certain dietitians that need to stick to clinical, right? Everyone has
okay.
There's nothing wrong with that at all.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
But the same thing with nutrition coaches, right? There's nutrition coaches that have no clue what they're doing, and they just got it from their previous person, who got it from a previous person, who got it from a previous person. So now you're getting the most watered down meal planner, and you have no clue why it works or what the purpose is. You're just getting a meal plan and see you later, one and done. Sorry to interrupt, Nate, but I just wanted to.
Yeah.
No, you're good. And I think like to on Andres' point about, I think also our education to become a dietitian is not geared to being a nutrition coach, being able to, like, I know we have like counseling classes, but I mean, Tony, how many counseling classes do we have?
Motivational interviewing.
Motivation, and it was all around motivational interviewing, right? And so
that's it.
and I know my program specifically was very, very like clinical driven. Even internships, like no one was doing a sport internship. Everybody was going straight to the clinical setting. So, I think it really comes down to the practitioner in terms of like what do they want to do? Do they have the skill set to move somebody from one place in their life to another? Because that's a whole different set of skill set than prescribing enteral nutrition or doing counseling on diabetes management, right? When, like you were saying, Dezi, when the damage has already been done. So I think it's those two parts. It's a lot to do with our education as well.
No, and I think no dietitian comes out of school ready to coach people, like none.
That's 100%.
Yeah, and I was actually having a conversation as we're trying to hire a nutrition coach, registered dietitian in a different country. So this is in Argentina, and there, like, most people come out of school already licensed, and this is actually how I started my career in nutrition, because when I started school in Venezuela, you do 5 years, and then as part of the 5 years, you're still doing your internship as part of, like, it's kind of like a coordinated program, like in dietetics. It's like you do everything, you do your supervised hours and everything. So you come out, you don't have to take a test, you come out as a licensed nutritionist, as a licensed dietitian. And one thing about them too is the same exact thing that happens to many dietitians here, is that they stick by textbook rules. So it's essentially like specific guidelines and a specific process we have to do. Is like note taking, and we have to do is like assessment, diagnosis, and like the monitoring and evaluation, the fucking ADIME notes. Just like got me like,
hate
it's like
those,
bro.
And it was just so like, it was like, I was just dread doing things like that. I was like, I'm not
the soap notes, man.
I'm not helping people by writing all this notes. So I was like, okay. And I stopped, and I thought I was doing a disservice to my profession. I was like, it doesn't have to be. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you talk to people in other countries, like similar like to it is here, where nutrition, like the nutrition profession, the one thing I actually give to South America as a nutrition profession, it's actually respected. And not necessarily that it's not here, but here there's a lot of people that don't understand what a dietitian does. Back then, when there's a nutrition problem, you go to a nutrition professional. But the thing with them is that they just give out the typical generic like meal plan. This is a list of foods that you can consume, and then you typically see in households like this little list of the nutritionist, in which like you can have these foods but try to avoid these foods, or you need to have this and then you need to avoid this. But then, and that's exactly how I started practicing here too. It was a consultation. You go into the consult, you do an assessment, which I think needs to be done, ask the questions, create an action plan. That's still well done, and that's still great to do. But then at the same time, I was realizing, I was like, okay, like, you want to book a follow-up session. That was the key. You want to book a follow-up session. Oh, I'll let you know. Or sure, I'll just do it in a month. Okay, perfect. But then what would happen in that month when that person would come back is like, yeah, I tried it out for a couple months or for a couple weeks, and then it just kind of fell off. That's when I realized that there was something wrong that was not only not allowing me to actually make money as a dietitian professional in private practice, but at the same time, I was realizing that I was not giving my client results. Like, seriously, I was like, out of like the 10 people I would see, like maybe like 4 to 5 people were actually doing well because, well, they were just more like type A. I want to make sure that I do things right. So it allowed me to understand that there was like a bunch of pieces that were missing in the way that we coach individuals, which actually I think it leads to another important aspect. You need to find a person that can guide you not only in changing your nutrition, but overall changing your lifestyle, changing everything that is like directly or indirectly impacting your nutrition, because that is the most important thing, particularly your mindset, because that's where it all starts. You know, that was the biggest kind of like realization to me in my career when I realized, or when I decided, I was like, I need to do things a little bit different.
And even to like back it up just a step about like nutrition coaches and dietitians, I remember when I came out of school, I hated nutrition coaches. I hated them. And I'll tell you 100%.
Me too.
Dude, because I was really into public policy. And the thing is, to become a registered dietitian, we have to take an exam. We have to do an internship. And certain states don't even have the licensure, but in Florida we do. And I remember I hated seeing things on Instagram like a nutrition coach. And it's just, now that I am one, right, and I'm also a dietitian, you learn how it could be so much more helpful, right? But there are those good and there are those bad. There's good and bad of every field and every profession, but understanding what you're looking for, how to decide, and if that's that person can vibe with you in a sense, right? Because if you have someone that you have nothing in common with, it's not going to work out either.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the head, Tony. Like, and this is something big that not only do, like, when as a client I looked for in a coach, but as a coach, this is what I look for in clients as well, is like, there has to be that vibe check. Like, there has to be that energy that resonates between the two. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't look at. I think it's like, okay, who is the, obviously qualifications is you definitely want somebody that knows what they're talking about, but coaching styles in terms of like, how do they communicate? How do they give off certain vibes? When someone says something, or when that coach says something, does it actually resonate with you, or is it just going through one ear and out the other? And so I think, I've worked with people that have worked with other nutrition coaches, and that's like when I asked them when they graduate and asked them, what was the best thing about the program? It was the energy. They always allude to energy and like the vibe that like we bring to every call. And I think that is also something that's important. I'm not sure how someone looking for a nutrition coach can find that, other than like following that person, just understanding who they are, doing your research. But I think that's something that tends to get overlooked, especially when people that are just desperate to get results, right? They're just like, yo, you're the most qualified, I'm going to go with you. But it's also like, does that person resonate? Does their message resonate with you? And I think that's something to also think about.
Yeah, it's not just about knowledge. It's about being able to relate to people and being able to kind of step down and to be in their own shoes. And I think that obviously that's another kind of big part of it that makes a good nutrition coach or dietitian or separates them from others, and I can totally talk about like, or just allude to, like, I know a lot of nutrition coaches that have absolutely never touched like anything in regards to dietetics on like an academia, and yet are some of the best nutrition coaches that I personally even look up to. Like, people like, and I've actually brought him into a podcast, like William Grazione. He's a physique coach, but he actually works with a lot of people in body composition. Like, this guy like knows, every time I ask him a question, I get blown away by the amount of information. But the key thing when I actually interviewed him was, how do you do your nutrition coach? And he's like, dude, like it's very similar to what you guys do. And I'm willing to go and take the extra mile to explain the reasoning behind every single one of my recommendations. And he gave me an example, like, hey, something is happening, something's not happening, something's not clicking. He got that message from one of his clients. He's like, you know what, let's get on the phone. Let's talk about this. Let's understand how your stress is. Let's understand all these different things. So he's asking all these right questions. So it's like, there are people that have massive passion and can relate to people on a deeper level, and at the same time can understand exactly how to coach them to actually get them to specific results. On the same token, I know dietitians that are also people that, like, when I met I'm like blanking on his name. Like he's a bodybuilder and he's also been in the podcast and he's also a registered dietitian. And
Oh
like
yeah.
I forgot
The
his
one
name.
that the dude at Fancy, right?
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
gonna kill me because I just totally blank on his name because really good
Ooh.
friends.
The
Chris Tuttle. Chris Tuttle.
yeah, there you go.
Chris Tuttle. He's a registered dietitian. The guy is massive. When you see him, like he's walking around,
Dude.
he's joked like insane. Like he's been bodybuilding since he was like 2 years old and something crazy like that. But he's a dietitian and he knows how to coach people. Like that's all they do. Him and his wife. His wife, on the other hand, is not. Yet she still coaches people. So it's not necessarily about the credential. It's about finding somebody that can have a good method that can also relate to you, and at the same time that can somebody that understands where you're coming from and that can be there for you. I think this is the bigger thing that kind of separates a lot of people. Like for example, I get turned away by somebody that has a nutrition coaching program and has 3,000 clients. And I'm not ashamed to say that I worked with an influencer and I built her nutrition program. Her name is Bella Falcone, and we did it based on her needs and stuff like that. But she never coached one person, and this is obviously not news to anybody. Like she was not really coaching anybody, but she was the face of the program, and I get that. But at the same time, we were seeing like closer to like 500, 600 people, and it was the same kind of meal planning. And it was just it was in ways, it was a little shallow. I try to make it as personalized as possible, but it was not always the best kind of approach. And we all had all registered dietitians in the team, but it was just not fully there. And we got good results for our clients, but it was not like what we were hoping that it would be. And that's why I decided, and it was not really, didn't really last as much. And it's not really even something that's happening anymore. So just a lot of lessons learned based on that.
I think that's a good point also to mention that, like, and I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this too, is like, when I think of nutrition coaching, it should be a very deep, personal, intimate relationship with your coach. Like, I mean, you're knowing the deepest, darkest secrets of people and why they make the decisions that they do. And I think that helps with that, with that connection. And I mean, I can only speak for myself, but how has y'all's experience been with in terms of like that relationship that you build with the client, especially if you're working with them for 5, 6, 7 months to a year? How does that relationship evolve over time for you guys?
I mean, it's huge. It's everything. I mean, the first thing that I can think about too is someone is searching for a nutrition coach. With a lot of what we do is like, what do their clients say about the process? Does that person have raving fans? And I think that in itself sets a lot of us apart because we are able to truly connect with them. 100% we're talking about nutrition. 100% we're talking about strategy, but let's get real. We're talking about lifestyle. We're celebrating the times that when they start to prioritize themselves, their family starts to change. Like, we're celebrating that. I think for me, the cool thing that I had a client graduate. He was one of my first when I first started this process. I had him graduate almost a year ago, and he reached out and he's like, "Hey man, my parents aren't doing too well. They decided to jump on one of the crazy diets. Would you mind just hopping on the phone just to provide a little bit of education?" And I think that in itself right there is just really a model of actual connection and getting behind a family system like that. So Nate, I'm 100% with you right here. Like, it is our opportunity to truly connect with them. And I think that's what really sets apart a really, really great nutrition coach and then someone who is just learning or in it for the money.
Yeah, I agree. So just to recap then, some of the things again to look for on this kind of area. So number one, we talked about accountability, somebody that can have constant communication with you or be available or resourceful on a week-to-week basis. I wouldn't even say a month-to-month basis. Number two, we also talked about personalization, somebody that doesn't really give you like the same plan that he gave somebody else, but they actually understand your needs, assess your needs, and then they can create a program that is based on the goals that you're trying to achieve and also from the realistic standpoint. That's number two. I don't know who wants to do number three or like based on, because I'm trying to kind of organize it so people can kind of like take, have some important takeaways here.
So nothing cookie cutter. Yes.
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, TC, I was going to say, like, I like what you do, man, because we have the accountability piece. We have all the other pieces too. But like when we step into knowledge and we step into like you did a great job of this, because I think you and I have had a conversation about this. Like, man, I don't want to just dive into research every single day. And you're like, well, why don't you just go out and talk to the experts so that you can gain that knowledge? So I feel like, TC, what you do could be that third thing where it's like, here is all the knowledge base that we have, and now let's bring it back down, to the streets and give it in a way where people can actually understand it.
Yeah, 100%. Because people, we all work with similar populations, but when someone comes to me that I have no clue how to work with, I'm going to send them to someone else. I had someone come up to me. They had SIBO, which is small intestinal bowel overgrowth, plus they had Crohn's, plus they had something else. Of course, if I had an athlete and I had to handle it, I could do it. But this person was not mobile. They had a lot of other things going on. They had a lot of sensitivities. I'm like, look, I'm going to hand you off to someone else. Not because I don't want to work with you, it's because I'm not the right fit for you. And another person came, he's like, keto. I want to do keto. I'm like, talk to Andres. Not because I can't, it's just that's not my expertise, right? Like, I'm not going to work with someone on something if it doesn't fit with what I'm really good at. It's a waste of time for them and a waste of time for me, because now we're just trying to make the puzzle pieces fit, even though we're on different board games.
Yeah. So again, looking for somebody that, I guess that would be number 4. 3 would be knowledge. I think knowledge is important, and having somebody that can understand nutrition and can explain it to you. Because I feel like if they make a recommendation, a person that is able to explain why, and that can explain it in a way that they understand it. Like when I started practicing, I remember like people would sometimes tell me like, you're speaking Chinese to me, because I'm like coming up with like all this like not fancy, just like, nutritional terms and, glycogen and all this different stuff. And I'm like, you need to kind of tone it down or explain it in a way that is easier for like a third grader to understand. That is something that one of one of the people we work with in the past actually taught me. And I'm like, okay, so somebody that can relate nutritional like knowledge in a way that you can understand. And then that's number 3. And number 4 is going to somebody that can stay on their lane. I think it's like what you referred to, Tony. It's like somebody that is not just taking clients left and right. And I'm going to be straight up honest. Like when I was like looking for a lot of clients, I'm like, I'll take whatever. And I worked with people that had, I was employed in a place where they would have all kinds of people. So I did work with people that had cancer, people that had like diabetes, chronic conditions, and all these different things. And not necessarily that I couldn't see them, but it was not really an area of like my area of expertise as it was in other areas like sports nutrition, for example. So knowing to stay in your lane and knowing when to, like, let's say that you come to you have a problem and you have this dietitian or diet nutrition coach you want to work with, and like they can't really help you, ask a question like, can you really help me with this? Like, and if they can't, then just refer them out to somebody that can. So, and I think also number 5 is you cannot put a price tag too low on nutrition coaching, because it's a very valuable thing. And of course it's a little bias coming from us all nutrition coaches, but since I was also a coachee and I was somebody that got coached by a nutrition dietitian in the past, I understand the value of what you pay for, because people don't pay for our time. They pay for outcomes. They pay for the accountability. And honestly, I have clients who've been with me for 12, like sometimes even like over a year, and they're still with me, not because they lack the education or because they lack the knowing how to do things. It's just simply because they need to have somebody that can hold them to something greater, or hold them to accountable to specific actionable items or goals or objectives that they need to accomplish. And that in itself has massive value that I personally and you all pay for to other coaches that you've hired specifically in business. Like I think that's a bigger thing. Like seriously, when we go back and look at mentors, business and whatever, we were paying top dollar just to be held accountable to do X, Y, or Z. Because when we're held accountable to do something, we take action on it, and then we see the results. I think
which I also think is really hard too. I don't know about you guys. When I was first starting this whole process to my business, I bought courses like Dietitian HQ. I think I kept them in business the first 3 years. Like it's a plethora of knowledge, man. It's like, what am I
You
going to do with
consume all
this? I
that
don't.
content.
Yeah. I mean, I think I consumed probably 3 of the videos, one of which I think was yours.
Yeah. How do
You
you
know
use
what I mean?
Trello?
So like, yeah. So it's like, yeah, at the same time, man, to a larger degree, it's the same thing that happens. I mean, what does one of our coaches say? Like, it's overanalysis and paralysis. What we're trying to do is teach application because the information is out there. It's all out there. Now it's like, how does that form for you, and how can you operate within it?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and with the money piece, right, they are scared of the number right now, but if they're lucky enough to live when they're older, how much is insurance going to cost if these things aren't fixed now? How much are you willing to pay for time back with your loved ones?
Yeah.
My sister passed away years ago. I would pay $1 million just to have one more minute with her. How do you think your family would feel if they lost you because of a weight-related issue or performance-based issue or whatever that looks like for you?
Yeah.
And you're scared of a price tag? I mean,
Yeah.
It's an investment, and I think that's the differentiator. You're not just buying like a piece of something or a tangible thing. It's an experience. It's an investment in your health, fitness, anything, and education, all that together. And I think it's an investment in relationships too, because I think we're building community, and I think that's what kind of differentiates us from many people, or that it's just a big separating factor in here too.
Yeah.
So
And
think that definitely
I would even challenge it and say, they're investing in a life-changing experience. Like, this is not just like oh, you got me to hit my goal. Great. Like, this is a completely life transformation. And I tell that to people when we hop on calls, is that like, this is not this isn't a one and done thing. This isn't you're going to, just here's a meal plan. You're going to get you're going to get your results and that's it. Right. Like, this is what my objective with my clients is for them to never, ever have to hire another nutrition coach, read another Instagram blog, do any of that for the rest of their life after they work with me. And so, I mean, what price tag would you pay, or would you put on something like that, or an experience like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for people listening in, like, they're probably maybe wondering, well, how much is that? And I think we all have different kind of price ranges in here, but I think none of us are charging less than $300 to $400 a month for coaching. And just because of the fact that of the amount of effort and the amount of again, accountability and support and application that we put towards our clients. And I think if you're looking for a registered dietitian or nutrition coach that is like anything below that, you're, as we learned with a common mentor that we had, is like you're not shopping based on value. You're just shopping based on price. And at the end of the day, that's definitely something that maybe right now you can't afford to do something like this. But if you decide to kind of go on the cheaper route, I tell people, like, if you can't really afford this right now, don't go for a cheaper route, because it's just going to be not necessarily a waste of your time, but it's definitely going to be like something that may not solve all the problems and all these like deep issues that you have. And then at the end of the day, you're going to be, 50% less that you were going to invest working with, me or other nutrition coach that actually is at a higher level. But at the same time, you're going to still have 50% of all the problems or more. So what is the decision that you want to make? So I think it's important to make sure that you're shopping based on the value and the experience that you're going to get, not necessarily just in the price tag. And I think that makes a big difference there too. So I think it's important. And like we said, it doesn't have to be a registered dietitian. I think we're a limited amount of people in this field as dietitians that are actually kind of standing up to kind of defend our name and all the profession and all the time and effort that we put towards our careers. But it doesn't have to be a dietitian, as long as it's somebody that can meet the criteria that we established here today for you guys. So I think that's the main thing. Anything else you guys wanted to share?
No, I think that's it, man.
Cool. Well, you guys know it, of course, if you want to hire us or any of us, of course, shameless plug, and you're really wanting to take your nutrition to the next level. We always, every time we have a chit chat series, we always put all of our contact information down in the show notes. So you can reach out to us, and all of us have different kinds of philosophies, or sometimes like a lot of things overlap, but we all believe in different things. Like Tony doesn't really believe in like tracking macronutrients in MyFitnessPal. I think it could be a good tool. So everybody has different views and they use different tools. But I think if there's anything that we all have in common is like we want to achieve what's best for our clients in a way that is sustainable and that they can keep for life. And then they can, when they ask him like 3 years down the line, like, hey, how's your nutrition? How's your fitness? That they can still say, it's great. I actually I eat well. I have a great lifestyle. And it's not necessarily because I did it on my own, because I had a coach that actually helped me get to this point. So yeah. I think that's the main thing. So anyways, well, that was a great conversation, guys. Listen, thank you so much for listening into another episode of VV Nutrition Radio. Of course, we'll see you guys in the next one. And if you have any questions, please let us know. Have a good one. Take care.